the EU General Data Protection Regulation for software testers and software testing. The EU GDPR will replace previous data protection rules and is enforceable from May the 25th, 2018. Anyone processing personal data from someone in the EU will have to comply with GDPR regulations. It does not matter where the data is stored or processed. Failure to comply with the GDPR can result in a fine of up to 4% of annual global turnover or 20 million euros, whichever is the greater. Serious infringements examples from EUGDPR.org include not having sufficient customer consent to process data or violating the core of privacy by design concepts. And the rules stipulate that any data breach must be notified to data subjects within 72 hours. You can find a summary of the GDPR at eugdpr.org, but it's important to know how it affects software testing. It's important for software testers to know about the GDPR because there are requirements in this regulation that you can test for. And if you are currently using live data in your test environment, or you are testing against production and have access to a customer's live data, then you may be in violation of GDPR. The customer must have given you consent to use their data in this way. Has your customer given you consent to use their personal data as test data? So what is personal data? Personal data is any data for a person or data subject that can be used to identify the person. For example, their name, their photo, their email address, etc. And why etc.? Because this will change over time and is system dependent. If it is possible to cross-reference the data to any other system, then it could be identifiable data. Do you display phone MAC addresses in your log files? That might be a violation of GDPR. Now, I'm not a lawyer, so you can't take this presentation as legal advice. But if your company has not considered how GDPR affects your systems yet, then you have work to do. So there are some terms to be aware of. The data subject is the person about whom personal data is captured, stored, and used. The data controller determines the purpose and processing method for personal data. The data processor processes data on behalf of a controller, your mail system, or your CRM system, or the system that you work on. And there are some fairly high-level and testable requirements around GDPR. Consent must now be explained prior to gathering user data in clear and easy to understand format, not legalese, and it must be easy to withdraw consent. Can your system do that? You must be able to provide a copy of any personal data held on a person free of charge and in an electronic format if asked by the data subject. Can your system do that? You must support full data erasure. This includes data no longer being relevant to original purposes for processing. Can your system do that? You must support data portability between data controllers in an easy-to-process format. If there's a standard in your industry, then use that standard. Can your system do that? Privacy and consent terms and conditions must be clear, and you can't go outside them. If you change them, you need to be able to notify your customers and make it easy for them to opt out of the changes or remove their consent for usage. Privacy by design is now a legal requirement. Now, this is harder to test for, but have you designed in privacy and security? Are you capturing just the data you need? Are you using it only in the way that your privacy terms and conditions say? The actual regulation is 216 pages long and you can find it online. I recommend you start with the summaries at eugdpr.org and gdprchecklist.io. I will also include some additional references in the video description. And once you know the rules, start by creating or reviewing your record of processing activities, i.e. what data you capture, from where, and how you use it. Now, you may not have time to fix your systems if you haven't started yet, but you may be able to mitigate some of the impact. and stop using live data in your test environment. For more testing information, and if you need consultancy or advice to help you with your testing, visit eviltester.com.